We're on page Kofayin Ches. We've been discussing this concept, which is a little bit out of my range, about the Nachash, and that giving birth at this time, but on the seventh day, is like you have to be bitten by the snake. The whole thing is really very, very elusive. He said that we're dealing with continence, and when we deal with continence, this a yichud of continence, so apparently it's a very, very dangerous area. So we'll start over here. We said, Siyum bir hamaymer min hazohar b'parshas b'shalach. We're going to come to the end of that and try to understand it. So, excuse me. The Maimer, this is the explanation of the Maimer b'parshas b'shalach and Nizkar the El, which is mentioned up above. Zel Shana, and this is what it says. I haven't seen that in the Sifra Tzniuta yet. Eli Daika, to me specifically, why is it to me specifically? What does it mean? Baratika Talia Milsa. So when he says to me, he's talking about Eric Anpin. So he says, Ma Titzak Eli, why are you crying? We're at the Yam Suf. So the Yam Suf is a day of, well, there's a day of birth. I think, didn't he say that that's the birth of the Yichud that took place on the first night of Pesach, which is very high level Yichud. But over here, we're talking about the seventh day, and the seventh day is a Yichud of Kadnas. So he said, the Mispar de Ditzil Ma Titzak Alai Alai Daika Bechatika Talia Milsa. So it refers to Eric Anpin, I'm sorry. Ratza Lomer, Kihlios Oz Zer Anpin Bebechinis Kadnas. Lo choyochel hizdavegim nuk besod nishichas hanachash, which is the secret of the concept of the biting of the nachash. What is so? We still really don't know what the nachash is all about. And the shichas hanachash kadei lekro kriyas yamsuf, in order to open up the yamsuf. So you need, in order to do that, there has to be the concept of biting is the lashon din. So he says a nachash. My goodness. So he said, that was what was necessary. If it wasn't for the fact that a higher level in this katnas, you could never get the Yam Suf to open up. It needs to be cry out to Eric Anpin to bring a power from a higher level. Hinai de Eric Anpin, Mislaveshas Bezer Anpin is inside of Zer Anpin. And this is the idea here, is a awakening of Eric Anpin to start shining. I don't know, he says it's already inside of Zah, but to actually illuminate Zah. In other words, increase the volume of the light. So therefore, or open up that channel that allows it to come through, something like that. So therefore the yichud has to be in this, sounds like a painful yichud. So he said, Benuk, besod neshichas on his keres. Aval shar ha'aros hanimshachas lo ata me'aba ve'imar, and other different levels of that are way, way above Zer Anpin. Even so, ein bechem koach lo'orer lo al ziva gazeh. It's not able to arouse it to the zivul v'lechein b'chatika talia milsa. So there, everything therefore, and we've seen that prayed before. This is that in order to be able to reach Atika, if you can reach Atika, then you could open up things that are really closed. Okay, that's a basic principle, really, of Rabbi Nachman, which is saying that his orus of his bodidus has the ability to reach the tremendously high places. So therefore, what is that tremendously high places? That means even to Eric Anpin, who maybe not so easy to get there, but who is able to bring down the solution. Now we come to Siyum Bir Maimer V'Yanes Moshe B'Fanav. He's afraid of the snake. I think one of the things that's left out, maybe not left out, he says it's a mata, right? That like it's a mata. Mata is is lush in the level of vav. It's a vav, right? Took the mata and he turned it into a snake. So Vav could be Yisod, Vav could be Zeranpen. Kanizka the Eoki Hine Nizboyer Itzleno. Now we've had this explanation. He says Ki Bekolcha Devarim Yesh Katnas V'Godless. Everything has that. It's not always godless, and it's not always katnas either, which is our normal state. Yesh Bechinas Moshe Shel Zaman HaKatnas, and there's an aspect of Moshe that goes to the time of katnas, and that Moshe who's sod Shnei Shemos Kael Shakai. So we have a picture of Kael, the word Kael, where we have 21 plus the 10 letters of the Milui, which is all a part of a Ravua of Akia, or part of Akia. So then he says also Shakai, which means Yesod. Shehem B'Gematria Moshe. So I'm not sure how they go together, what it means, but here Kael Shakai you see all the time. They come to the Gematria, those two by themselves come to the Gematria Moshe. Then it's going to come to the gematria of this number 354, which is the gematria of the lunar year. Just I said that, threw that in there. Yehia b'gematria shnad v'im tosef chamisha osios sheyesh b'milui kael. So add on another 5 letters come from the milui kael. O chamisha osios shel kael shakai. So again, what this is about is deeper than what I could get, because what is Kael Shaka? How does it work? What does it do? Hakol b'gematria shnat below shin nun tes. Shu b'gematria nachash imakola. Now, what he just said about Kael Shakai and adding them up and different kinds of ways to adding up is like a reach for me to be able to understand what really goes on there. But let's see the first part. He says, you take the phrase Kael Shakai, which is the gematria of Moshe, and you can do things with those letters. Apparently, there's a rule that allows you to, that allows the ARI, or the ARI, to be able to use different combinations of letters, and to see within it that it comes out to the level of Nachash. This really doesn't explain a lot, but it gives an outline of it. So, Bira Kasav Asiso Choshen Mishpat. Now, where is this coming from? So we're going to read on a little bit and try to get into this. There's a place on the next page or so that I want to look at. It said, so Asiso Choshen Mishpat. Ka Choshen hi Osios Nachash. Well, there you go. Ubo Mishpat v'dinim tekifim, and in that Nachash, he says, are dinim tekifim. So he says that the Nachash is related to the phrase Kael Shakai, and those two ideas bring you into the different combinations into the concept of it's a lashon yichud. So I'm not sure. V'zechu v'gam masha kasa b'sofa parsha v'yakel. He says over there, v'zechu v'shono. Chaya chada is ba'alma. There is this one creature in the world, and it has control over 1,000 keys. Shehu sod shnei shemos kael shakai, which is the secret of these two names. Kenizker, what is the secret of these two names? If you take them and you make a milui out of them, Haim Ola b'gematria Elef, they come to the concept of 1,000. V'zer v'sod Elef Maftachan. This is the concept of 1,000 keys. A nizker v'havein zeh. Well, I don't really understand it so well. Let's go on. So we still, that is still very pretty much vague about, doesn't explain what the 1,000 keys do. But let's just take, for example, just make something up. If I try for myself. Because the word Kael Shakai refers to Yesod. And into the Yesod, and Kael, we understand, refers to really a levush of the Mochi. So it has those luchas of motion you're putting together, and Shakai is concept of Yichud, of the male aspect entering in. Kaniska b'miluam heim olam b'gematria elef, and somehow the two of them are able to deduce it's 1,000. So elef miftachan. Those are so it's like Kael Shakai is able to open things up. You can see how it comes to the word 1,000. It doesn't say hamiftachan, but it is that they in fact cause everything else to happen as a result of bringing this lavush and through the whatever that means. I think we saw something about it again about the name Ekia, but I don't remember it. Of miftachan and nisker v'havin. Okay, let's go on. Yisboyer inyan heter hazivug b'shavatzas v'rosh chodesh b'mei hasfira. He says inyan kol memtes yamim shal sfiras omer. He says da ki hazivug asher ba'osem hashavasas, the yichud that takes place on those Shabbatas during the 7 weeks of the Omer, of Yom Rosh Chodesh, like for example on that, Rosh Chodesh Iyar, SEFIRAH, the Shecher, he says, Heter Lona Zivug Hahu, so at that time it's permitted to have a yichud then. Im calls us, and then a Zivug Gamor shall gadlus, Ki Adayim Zecha B'so de Katnas. So then what kind of yichud would it be? Keniska the Ero Be'inyan Zivug Leil Shvi shall Pesach, like we said before, it's a yichud in Katnas. It sounds like it has to this concept of the Nachash again. Well, the Zivug should be Yamim Ma'edachahim al Derek Masha Kasav Debe Zivug Leil Shvi shall Pesach. They all go the same idea. That in order, I don't know, that was the idea there. The Shvi shall Pesach was calling in Eric Anpen, reaching to a really, really high level. To the actually, it's an inner level, reaching to the inside of everything. That's why I see it now. To be able to penetrate the different boundaries and barriers, and to be able to reach Eric Anpen. So that you could do that, but you have to be squeezed like crazy, which is what we were at that time. That's my thinking anyway. But there's a little difference. Because there's different levels of mochin that come in at that time. Keniska the ale, as we mentioned up above. Ki einam nishlomim, and they're not completed. The konis kulam ad chag shavuos, until all of them can come in. So there's into the chag shavuos oz who zivug gamor the godless k'moshe varba ezes Hashem. Let's look at the Shefa here. I don't know if I looked at the Shefa, but it's on this idea. I looked at some of them. He says, so he's a gevar ba'arna bezech the he says, medivri rabam b'farshim. The Navi zos shu b'kitzara, let me bring it back again. He says, azivug an asbim mechasfira, that yichud. Let me see if I got this. Real. Zivug prati. It's a specific yichud shall call parts of la'atzma. So every single parts of every week we're working on a parts of. So it's a different parts of, he says. So every week the yichud that takes place there is going to be for the parts of. So how's that go? Shebekol shavua. Na'asa zivug b'parts of shabo nishlamu l'konis amoch b'shvura kodem. So again, it has to do with the previous week. The previous week, every yichud that takes place in the second week really is going on the basis of the yichud that, let me get his exact words, of the yichud that took place in the previous week. Shebekol shavua na'asa zivug b'parts of shabo nishlamu, that was already completed. The konis amocha b'shvua hakodem. Now he's talking about the yichud where on Shabbosos, or what is he talking about? Is that what he's talking about? Gom b'shvua hasheni, la'achar shavar nishlamu the konis amocha the sefiras hachop b'shvuas hakodem, since they already came in. Also zivug hana'asid b'Shabbos. There we go. Shebetocha shavua hasheni, that's in the middle of that going to be in the middle of the next week. Or the next count, let's say, or it's going to be somewhere in the next count, previous count, I guess, get it as well. No, wait a minute. The yichud is going to take place on the Shabbos of the second week, whatever the Shabbos would occur, and the yichud would take place as a result of the hashlama of the week before. So that's a little complication there. So that's how it is, though, because there's a shlemus there, and he can make a yichud using that shlemus, I guess. So it means that the first week is real, I don't know, is mashpia, or it has some kind of shefa that's available to the second week. The huba parts of a chachma shagavar nishlam tikunum. So it's going to be, the yichud's going to be with the in the parts of a chachma shagavar nishlam tikunum b'shvua sha'avar. Below parts of a bina, but not in bina, which is the next one. Shadayim lo nishlam tikunu ad yom hashishi, the shavua, until you get to the sixth day of the week, the sixth day of the week of the second week. Shabo yikanzach amamocha the rishim the god the sheni the abba. That time you're going to have the mochim are going to be, comes a little bit more interesting here. It says that you're going to be dealing with the mochim the godless sheni the abba. In the same way goes every single week. I don't think I understood this part here. Until the sixth day of the Shavuot Hasheni, of the second day. Now this is the week of Bina. Shabo Yikanzach HaMamochen, the Rishimo, the godless, Sheni, the Abba, that would be on the sixth day. Okay, I got it now. So the sixth day is when the Rishimo comes in. That's the time when you can have a yichud. So perhaps what he means is that the Rishimo of Chochmah, which has existed in the next week, is sufficient to be able to make a yichud at that time, to bring the yichud together at that time. But this is only a yichud the bechinas ach. Became in shal mochin upon him, because the mochin have daim lo nimshach in the parts of ad leil shavuos. Well, so there's another idea. V'zech b'sha'amach Rav Khan. This is what the Rav says here. Bein hazivugim, between, when he's talking about the zivugim, it could be bechinas madregos hamochin sheniknasu bo. Let me get this over here. Bein hazivugim, it could be bechinas madregos hamochin sheniknasu bo bizmana, who according to the level of the mochin that you're coming in right now. The Vizech of the Chorah b'mei chol, during the week of Chol Moed Pesach, during that time, Yeh ansach of Zivug HaTachton, you shouldn't have a yichud down below. Ma'ach she'adayim lo nishlam atikun b'shum parts, because the parts of itself does not have a tikun. Now, my mind got off, and when he says, we had the question that hangs over between the sixth and the seventh day, is that it's sufficient, or the biggest thing that godless, the main element is the Rishima that comes in, or just the fact that it came in. That here we say that it makes it roi, that's the special quality of it. This is where it makes it roi to zivuk. So he said, V'achein, kachi shitas chelik mechakubolim yu'uin b'mefarshim, so you see over there. Now, I wanted to look over here at, I don't know which is the next thing that we want to do. Let's see, the base. Okay. Let's look at the next one. And he says, Yisboyer, up above. It says, Yisboyer shebimei SEFIRAH yesh lehizachar shelo yegalech b'rosho. In the Giluach, so he writes, I think we learned this a couple of years ago before. So in the Giluach, Mem Tes Yamim Elu Lo Choyim Mori Zal Megalech Rosho. He didn't shave his head, didn't take a haircut. Ela be'erev Pesach be'erev Chag HaShavuos, only on erev Pesach, and then he waited all the way till erev Chag HaShavuos. V'lo Choyim Megalech Lo B'yom Rosh Chodesh Iyar. V'lo B'yom Lag LaOmer, which is, and he says La Omer instead of Ba Omer, so that's where he writes it. So it could be either one. The 33rd day for the Omer, Vishum Ofen. So he says there's no way that he would do that. Now, there's a couple of things on this, because this is a minhag that's very widely held in this. And let's look at the one on the bottom first, the Shefach Gavonos. But up at the top, in the on the left side, or on the left side on the top, yeah. So there's also an explanation of some of the ideas that the Maruch had about when to some differences. We saw that before, I think. You've probably seen it. Okay, we'll look at number bet down below. He says, "B'memtes yamim elu lo hoya mori zal megalech merosho ala be'erev Pesach u'be'erev Chag HaShavuos v'lo hoya megalech lo b'yom." He said, "What? Lo b'yom Rosh Chodesh Iyar." They're going on to it. Okay, let's go on to the light print. He says, "Kosav b'sefer Torah Rekes." He says like that. The ha'olam choshev shetam iser hasigalach b'mei ha'omer umifnei ha'avelos. It's because we're in mourning, and in avelos you don't shave, cut your hair. Al tamidi Rabbi, all the tamidim of Rabbi Akiva. V'fnei kach hitira l'hisgalech b'yom lag ba'omer shebo paschal the most. Avach l'chaboyim besod Hashem. I don't know what that meant there. He said, Yodi, I guess the people that study Stove, that's what he means. Yodi b'divrei hazoyer she'ein zeh machmaskach. That's not the reason. So that's the reason why everybody shaves on on Lag BaOmer. Rak machmas shebiyamim aladuchav nishba shefa shel yud gimel midas arachmim ayidech hatzinur shehem sodas aras elyonim. This is a time of flow. So you don't want to stop the flow. While the flow comes through hairs. And because that's happening, we want to let the hair grow. For this reason, lag ba'omer, he says. But there are those who do this. That was in that little blurb up above. Because of the yesh bezecha besod gadol, ve'ein roy legalos mishum kavod elokim hester davar. He doesn't want to go into it more. Maybe that's why some of the questions that we ask are not answered, or because we're not supposed to get to it like that. Shebetzirus v'yom rishon de Pesach mem tes yomim, because if you add Pesach in, it comes to be 49 days. Okay, that's possible. So that's how you could do 48. That's an answer you could do 48 because that's the machlokas up above. We'll see. Amna l'chumasa kasa v'rishash b'nar shalom. He writes over there in the Nar Shalom. What does he write? Let's say in the Nar Shalom. If we're talking about the shaving that we do during the overtime, tzarich lihizachav l'shamar ma'od shelo l'galech b'shum ofen ela b'yom mem tes uko minhag harizal. So v'locha kamosha kasach of gitzaz m'kubalim cherim l'leich b'yom mem ches. Some people say you can do another 48. So we saw where you could by adding the first night of Pesach. So he said v'ki inyan the mokim shel omer, those mokim that come during the omer, b'fnei atzman by themselves, v'inyan hasarad b'fnei atzman. So there's one, the mochim are one thing, and the saras another thing. What is that? V'einin doimim zeh lezeh, and they're not similar. V'vichem yom the mem tes b'chilas yom the mem tes v'saros lo nimshukol klal ad yom mem tes. I'm not sure I could translate it right there. B'chilas yom the mem, the idea of the day of the 49th day. No, ubechidas yom the mentes the sa'aros lo nimshachas klal ad yom hamem tes. I'm not sure what that meant, so let me try to read on. V'nistafakti asafei godol. So I had a real doubt about this. Im chal yom mem tes b'Shabbos. What happens then? Im muta the galeach v'mem ches. Then you could on Friday you could take a haircut. V'lo epshitali, but didn't really answer me on that. So I thought that I really had to take a haircut. But in the end, I guess he means I didn't really do it. Also didn't let me. I did not let the chasan the galoach Kodim Shavuos before Shabbat become a Yom for many different days. I'd count the Shona. Not sure exactly what that was, but Maybe we'll get a better idea over here. We have, how much time we have? Well, let's just start it out and see. We could take it on. It's a little bit more. He says, this is the Mesoras HaGavanos up above, on number Kaf Aleph. And where is Kaf Aleph? It said, V'yom lag la'omer b'shum ofen, he never would shave at that time. He writes, Hagor b'pri Eitz Chaim, this is something we might have seen. Zal l'shon l'divrei HaMaskil me'Eitz Chaim. Mori zach b'locha b'choya mistaver, me'erev Pesach ad erev Shavuos klal v'ikr. Lo b'rosh chodesh v'lo b'omer. He said, v'omer ch'odei tam. He said the reason to me was shelo l'galech b'yamim elu ki gavar yudati. So he says you already know. Ki yesh tikun echad b'gugolta in the skull of Eric Anpin. I suppose he means there's a tikun, one tikun. V'hu nikra omer naki, and it's omer naki, and it's called white wool or clean wool. So here's the word Omar and the other word Omer that we deal with. Same word. V'yesh tikun base hanikra tala de badolcha, which is the crystal dew. V'hi necha v'zecha v'sod pasuk v'ha'omer asira se'efa. That's complicated. So it says that this is that goes under that pasuk, sira se'efa. Ki omer v'gematria shen yud. So take it, make it shen yud. That would it be without the vav. So he said, let me see again. Ki omer begematria shed yud olmim. It talks for the 310 worlds, universes, hidden places. Olmim 31, right, is kale times 10. Again. Umalacha omer man. So I'm not sure what this is, but malacha omer, the bringing the omer, is man. Oz, Man, Omer, so now you have, I think it's Man, Oz, Man, and Omer, Gematria, Toph. It comes to Gematria of 400. The 400 Almim, the Yarsin, the Tzedikaya, it goes like that. So, Shekel Kesef, it's also the same idea as this. I know that there's a sefer by that name. I don't know exactly what we're doing here, but v'chein beis pamim omer, so take and multiply omer times 2, gematria keter, comes to gematria keser. Shehi gugolta, which once again is the skull, the top. V'ha'amer chabinaki, so the concept of this omer, this klub omer, so you look working with the word omer, but so he says the omer naki, that clean wool, shehem hasa'aros hem bekeser, these are the hairs that are in keser. V'hine ha'omer asira se'efa, the woman is a tenth of an eva, who sewed osis peah. Wow, he says ha'omer is the concept of peah. Now, what peah is he talking about? Shehu ha'malchus ha'nekros alokem. So he says the peah, he means the pas rosho, of the corners of the head, is going to be the malchus area there, the skull. V'hu mida yud. I don't know what this means. It's the mida of 10. Well, it's malchus is the 10th sefirah. That's the sira se'efa. Now, in this phrase that he's saying that, ad kan l'shono, this is the lashon of the Govi over there. Okay, so that could be looked at again. I think we're out of time. And just to try to address that last part. See if there's any understanding of something deeper over there. Thanks for learning today. All the best.